Hello everybody and welcome to Book Review Mondays. I really wanted my first book review of the year to be BioShock Rapture by John Shirley, but I haven't finished it yet because the Grisha trilogy has really just absorbed all of my reading time. But because of that, I decided to talk about the last book I finished in 2016, and that was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I do have to say it was very difficult for me to really get involved into the story at first. That is partially my fault. One, for going in blind because I've never actually read Pride and Prejudice before, and I've also never actually watched Pride and Prejudice as a movie all the way through. I've only pretty much watched the end of it. I was focusing on driving as I was listening to that, and I realized that they used the name Eliza, Elizabeth, and Lizzie to describe the main character, Elizabeth Bennet. And when you're driving, listening to an audiobook you've never listened to before, that really confuses you. At least it really confused me. And so I actually had to research this book a little bit before I could read it further because I was so confused. I'm all, wait, is there 3 Elizabeth characters or is there just one and she's called 3 different names throughout the story? And it's just one character, but I had to look into it because I was so confused. And by doing so, I actually kind of researched the plot more so that I knew what to expect, so that not only can I be more invested in the story, so that also I could really just enjoy the words and not have to focus so much on the plot, especially while driving. That being said, once I did a little bit of research and was able to invest myself into the plot, I absolutely loved and adored this book. And just the journey of each one of the characters, I could tell that Jane Austen really put her all into this story. She developed some amazing characters. They each had their own personality. And the audiobook I listened to was narrated by Rosamund Pike, and she did an amazing voice acting job at really absorbing each personality for the character and voice acting accordingly for them. So it was a really amazing, immersive experience, and I really liked just listening to how the plot was going to unfold. And I was really taken by surprise by Elizabeth Bennet's sassy, spunky, just altogether stubborn, strong-willed attitude. She does not let anybody push her around, and she's very nosy because she wants to know exactly what is going on in the lives of others, especially when they're directly impacting her and her family. And even though this 19th century English was very difficult for me to kind of get through because some of the words aren't exactly used as they are in this day and age, and so I giggled a little bit, being immature. But, it was still really nice to kind of absorb myself into this 19th century world that is full of women who need to marry for their social standing and to gain property because they can't hold property. And they didn't really marry for love, even though Elizabeth Bennet was not having that. She said she needed to marry for love. She needed to marry an equal. And so when she gets proposed to by other people in the book and she turns them down, I felt like it was a big mic drop. She just has such a way with words, and she is just so opinionated that listening to her turn these men down was the best thing ever. And I really liked how you could tell Jane Austen wanted you to have a certain opinion on each character, whether you liked them or not, you thought they were immature, or you thought that their parenting strategy, specifically the Bennet's parenting strategy, was not the best, because even though I could tell that Mr. Bennet really, really loved his family, really loved his daughters, they were not the best parents at teaching their children correct social etiquette and social hierarchies throughout the story, that it really put some of the characters in a serious pickle. I definitely loved listening to this story, and actually when I got to the last about 5 or so pages, I sat down on the couch, pulled out my book, and I just listened and read along because I really wanted to have some of that sit down time to just really appreciate the ending of the story. So it was all in all a really great classic romance literature, and I really am super glad that I enjoyed the novel because I really want to get more into classical literature. That is one of my goals for 2017. And so I'm really excited to see what other classical books I should be reading. Please let me know in the comments down below what classical book you want me to read this year. And also, let me know your thoughts on this book, whether you liked it or you didn't. And if you like this book, tell me what other books from Jane Austen I should read, or any other type of that classic romance literature I should be reading, because my experience and my knowledge on these books are very far and slim. I don't really read these books. I didn't have to read them for high school or college. And the only other classic romance I've actually read, and I actually haven't read it, and that is Jane Eyre. I just watched several different movies on Jane Eyre. So again, I am very naive to this type of genre, and I could really use your help on trying to figure out what to read next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!